And so I just wanted to kind of lean into that a little bit about, starting, not just starting businesses, because we have tons of people watch that want to build Barndos. Some people are asking like, what do we stand for? What are we about? But also we have a lot of like entrepreneurs and, people who are looking at what we did. And I promise you, if we can do it, you can do it. And
Yeah.
so one of those things is just, finding something bigger than yourself to kind of to dive into. And that's been you all day, man. From, I remember reading Plan B, man, like,
Yeah.
and, and
Yeah.
just, stacking on top of that. And like, so I know you do a lot outside of your corporate gigs with helping people get attached to giving and do different things like that. So I just wanted to lean into that, man, and hear some of your perspective
Yeah.
on the power of giving and getting behind stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's huge. And, I could talk about this for hours. And I think more and more, even for-profit companies are discovering the power of generosity and what it can do for their employees as well as their customers, as far as not just their image, but building trust. And, it's funny, we're in the loan process right now. And I know you guys have talked about that on the podcast. And,
Yeah.
it's, you're meeting with all these different bankers, and one of the first things they ask is, tell us about your builder, right? And so even in that conversation, having the ability to share, not just, oh yeah, it's a great group out there and, on the East Coast doing great work. We can talk about the heart of your company and what you guys are really all about. For me, I think the first time I discovered the power of this was back in 2010. At that time, I was leading a church here in Nashville called Crosspoint Church, and we were certainly experiencing some growth. But 2010, Nashville had this massive flood, which some people remember. If not, you can go Google it and look at the pictures. It was just a tremendous force of water that flooded our city. And so, I mean, thousands of people displaced from their homes and all that. It happened over a weekend. It was a Saturday and a Sunday. And I remember a pastor friend of mine, his name was Dino Rizzo. He was at the time at a church down in New Orleans. And they had been through some hurricanes. And he called me and he said, Pete, what are you guys going to do about the flood? What's your response going to be? And I was like, I don't know, Dino. It's like, it's happening right now. He's like, well, what are you guys going to do? I was like, Dino, I don't do flood recovery, man. I have no idea. I'm a pastor. He's like, bro, if you don't step up to the plate right now and own this, you're going to miss a golden opportunity. He said, this is your chance to show people what you guys are really about. And I was like, all right, man. I had no idea what I was doing. At that time, Twitter was still really big. And so I put out a tweet that night and just said, hey, our church is going to do some flood relief starting tomorrow. I mean, the flood was still going on. We were way ahead of the curve. Just sent out a tweet, said, if anyone wants to join us and help us, bring a pair of work gloves, any other tools you got, and we'll meet in the parking lot of the church. Over 1,200 people showed up on that Monday morning, that first day. By the end of that week, we had tens of thousands of volunteers showing up. The city of Nashville made us the lead in recovery, like a church with a pastor who knows nothing about recovery, nothing about rebuilding, nothing about any, like we were just the first to show up and say, we're going to help. We don't have a plan yet, but we'll find some people to help. I'm telling you, with over the next month, we had busloads of people coming from other cities that would drive to our church parking lot, get out, and say, where can we help? And we were just putting volunteers all over the city of Nashville. Our church was never the same after that. When people ask what made it one of the top 5 fastest growing churches in the country for several years in a row, I always take them back to 2010 and the heart of generosity the church showed. When the city saw that, even people who wanted nothing to do with the church, because the church is has some of the same issues that businesses have, right? People look at businesses kind of weird. They're just about money, or they're just about getting rich. Churches deal with all that, for profits deal with, as far as people's opinion of them and what they're doing behind the scenes, all that. With that, though, with that event and us getting out there like that, it just changed everything. It put down people's guards, and even people who aren't really even interested in church were like, if I ever want to go to a church, I think I'll go to that church. And then they did. And that was the first time I saw it. After that, man, we just doubled down on it. We're like, this is the easiest way for us to communicate to a city what it is that we're really about, just serving people, regardless of who they were, what their background was, whether they'd ever come to our church or not. We just got out there and we served. And we just kept doing things like that. We started a thing called the Dollar Club, which I love, where once a month we asked everybody in the church, just give $1, just give $1, and everybody give $1. And then we would take it that week and we'd take a video crew with us and we'd go out and we'd find somebody who we could just change their life. You know, it was usually around $8,000 to $10,000 that we collected. We'd take that out and just bless somebody, just serve somebody, you know, do some construction on their yard or their house or whatever, you know, help them out with some bills. And we come back the next week and show everybody that video and they go nuts. And it was just like showing them, hey, when we all just chip in just a little bit, just $1, look at the impact that we can have. So that for me, TJ, that's the first kind of season of my life where I realized the impact that generosity can have, whether it's money, whether it's time, it really doesn't matter. Just being generous and serving people in your community, I think can have a tremendous impact for corporations.
Oh, there's no question, man. And people buy into it because it's not self-serving. And
That's right.
it seems like it would be the opposite, right? But people
Yeah.
buy into it so quick. And what's cool about that story to me is like you just said yes, and that's
Yeah.
and so I got another coach, mentor, friend in my life. He's actually right up the road from me there in Brentwood, and he hit one of the first things he ever said that just hit me was be where your feet are. And he
Yeah.
was using it in a context of like, hey, when you're at home, turn the phone off, be there. When you're at work, be there. You know, when you're at your kid's little league game, be there.
Be
Um,
there.
but it goes over to this giving too. Like, someone to hear you talk about that and be like, well, dang, maybe we'll have a natural disaster and we can we can show up and start being generous. But it doesn't take that. You just have to show up where you are locally. And for us with the Miracle League, it's a really cool program. And we have a lot of people in our company and other companies that have got behind it because of us getting involved. And there's people there way before we got there. But for us, people ask me all the time, how did you get tied up with that? Well, it's because I have a special needs daughter that plays ball there, and
Yeah.
I had a need. I saw how they served, and it was just a great fit. And they're local, and it was just I'm going to show up and do it. And I remember about 2020, I called Pam Dean, who's the director of our league here, and I was like, I want to be a board member. She was like, I don't ever get phone calls that just,
Yeah.
hey, I want to join the board. And she was like, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of things, and I was like, look, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to be involved and bless this. And I can remember a time when prior to this being in ministry and stuff, and I was always like, I always had the heart for helping people. I just never had no money. And,
Yeah.
now we're in this amazing opportunity here with this company. And like, we had the ability to give. And so, now I didn't lose the heart of giving. Now I have the ability to do it in a bigger capacity, but it started with me just taking a risk and saying, hey, I'm going to do it. And at that point in time, I was just trying to figure out how could I give $500 to be, that level of a sponsor and like come out and volunteer in some way, some shape, some form. I had no idea that a year later, we'd be donating massive sums of money and have this machine and have clients who are excited because they know, hey, a portion of this is going to help that. And, have a company of people who are more excited about, how many kids signed up, how many nights do we get to go out there and volunteer. And like, it's a big deal. They get more out of showing up and volunteering on game night than the big check day, but
Yep.
it just started by saying, yeah, I mean, I have absolutely no idea apart from just circumstance. This is where I was. This is something that I found myself in, and we plugged in and engaged. And I didn't really, again, had no idea how it would be received. I'd heard people tell me, hey, you need to have something bigger than yourself. And, it was good advice, but I had no experience there. And we just started, and it escalated so quickly to the point to where our employees were like, what are we going to give? And I'd say, and they're like, we need to do more. How many games are we volunteering? Let's try to do more, and now it's escalated to the point where like, they're like, we need to build a second field. And my company's like, we're going to do it. We're going to build the field. We're going to do this stuff. And then as we expanded and we opened up our Somerville down near the coast, like Charleston area, we moved into that market, and there's a Miracle League down there. And we ended up actually donating money there before we ever even made like a rent payment. And then we just opened the Dunn office, and same thing. Like we connected with a thing there. And I was telling a story last Thursday, April 4th, we had our ribbon cutting up there. And I'm trying to do last minute stuff and get ready for this whole shindig. And one of the first ladies there, she comes walking up, and she's like tears in her eyes, and she's like, thank you so much for your extreme generosity. You guys, joining the chamber, they connected me with you. I had no idea that, you guys would come through like you did. And without you, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And we lost our funding last year. And she's talking all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. And I had no idea what she was even talking about. It didn't even come through me. My team was contacted, and there was a need there for, something to raise awareness for childhood victims and stuff. And they donated this massive sum of money, and my leadership team made that happen, and I didn't even know. And it was just the impact that it's rubbed off. And so now it's bigger than me. It's way bigger than me. It's kind of like you talking about the Dollar Club. Like, if it was up to Pete to donate money, we might be able to buy somebody's lunch.
Yep, maybe.
But man, when everybody gets behind it, a little bit goes a long way. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.